Hello everyone, today we're learning mציעא Daf Gimel. We're going to start from Daf Beis on the base from the Mishnah. Motza shtar choiv. Someone found loan documents. Im yesh b'hem achrayis nechosim lo yachzir, shebeis din yifroi mehem. There's two types of loan documents. One that says in achrayis nechosim, meaning that if the borrower doesn't have money to pay off, so the guy who gave him the money, who lent him the money, could go to any fields that he sold, any property that he sold after the loan happened, and he could take that field away from the buyer. So it says if someone found a document of a loan and it says in it that there is achrayis nechosim, that means that you could take these properties. So the din is, you shouldn't give it back because Beis Din Ephraim will take the money. And we're going to see in the Gemara exactly why. If it doesn't say any achrayis nechosim yachzir, you should give it back to the malva she'en Beis Din Ephraim. Divrei Aryeh, that's the shit of Aryeh. V'chachomim in benkach or benkach, doesn't matter if there is any guarantee or there's no guarantee. Lo yachzir sh'upnei Beis Din ufnei shebeis din Ephraim. Anyway, Beis Din will go and take from the guarantee, and we're going to see in the Gemara exactly what's going on in the Mishnah, and from now on we're going to call achrayis nechosim a guarantee. Says the Gemara, b'ma askin, and what are we talking about? That the loive agrees that he borrowed the money and he never paid back, even though that there is a guarantee. Amay lo yachzir hamoida. V'ikeshein chayv moida kein b'rim achrayis nechosim amay yachzir neither lo yigovi mimishabdi v'nei chorim migba gavi. And if there's no guarantee, so very good, you're not going to claim from any of these property that he sold, but you're going to claim from the loiva the money that he owns, and he doesn't agree that he owns the money. He says, I paid back, or the loan never happened, or whatever he says. So what's pshat in the Mishnah? Says the Gemara, Lo ilom k'shechayv moida, v'ochai nitayma d'chayshim al shem ha'kosav lilvois b'nisan v'lo ilova atishri v'asa l'mitruf l'kucha shelo yikadin. It's talking about when, let's say, Reuven borrowed the money, he's a loiva, and Shimon is a malve, he lent the money. So it's somehow where Reuven agrees that he owes the money. And if there's no achrayis nechosim, no guarantee for sure, you should give it back to Shimon so he could claim back the money from Reuven. But if Reuven doesn't admit, we have a problem. Sorry, and in the case where there is a guarantee, the issue is we have a chashash, maybe they wrote this document in Nisan, and the lending happened only in Tishrei, half a year later. And then if you give it back to the malva, he's going to claim from these fields that the loiva Reuven sold between Nishan and Tishrei, and that's not right, because the loan only happened afterwards, and the guarantee only should start from Tishrei. Says the Gemara, Yochi kol shtari da'asa lekamon nechish lo ochi. Why are we choishish over here for this chashash that the lending happened after what's written in the shtar? In every case, you should be choishish when someone comes to Beis Din with a guarantee shtar and says, I want to get paid, maybe the loan only happened later. Says the Gemara, Kol shtori lo rei, ani rei. A normal shtar that no one's lost, nothing, there's no chashash. But this, because it was lost, there's a chashash that he wasn't keeping on it so well, because there was something wrong in the document. And what was wrong in the document is that the lending only happened months after the document was written. Says the Gemara, Elo hodit nan koitzim shtale loy ve'afal pishein mal ve'imoy lechatchila echi kasvinu neichu shem ha'kosav lilvot b'nisam v'lo ilova tishrei v'osin mitzvah shelo yikadin. It says in the Mishnah that if Reuven comes to Beis Din and says, I want to write a shtar that I owe Shimon, that I'm taking a loan from Shimon of £1 million and write it from today. How do we write it and give it to Reuven? So he could give it to Shimon when he gives him the £1 million. Maybe he's going to give him the £1 million only in a year from now, and really what's meshubad is only from a year, not from now. And then he's going to take, and then when he comes to take his money and Reuven doesn't have what to pay, he's going to take from the property that he sold between now and a year's time, if this is a chashash. Says the Gemara, Marvasi b'shtar akno doshi bid nafshei. So there is a different type of shtar, and that's a shtar akno. And a shtar akno means that Reuven is makneh to be chayav £1 million, even if Shimon won't give him the £1 million from today. So therefore, in such a case, it's such a type of shtar where it says over there in the Mishnah that you're allowed to, the best in right to the loive a shtar, even if the malva is not with him and they don't see the transaction of the money, is talking about such a shtar. So even if he never got the money, he has to pay back, and therefore there's nothing to be choishish for. Says the Gemara, Yochi, masnisin diktonim yesh boim achayis lechosim lo yachzir. והוא כינו כשחייב מוידה, ומשום שם הכוסף ללבס וניסם ולא ילובה התישרו ועושן לקוחה שלו כדין, המי לא יחזה, נחזה בשטר הקנו שיר בנפשי, בשטר דלו הקנו ליקה למיחש, לא אמרת כי ליקה למעל ובעדי לא יקספינן. Said the Gemara, it doesn't make sense what he's saying. In the Mishnah it says, if there is a guarantee, you shouldn't give it back. So let's check, if it's a type of document that has akno, that he was makne, the loiva was makne to the malva even if he doesn't get the money, so there's nothing to be choishish, because even if the money came later, there's no chashash, because the chiyuv is from now. And if it's shtar in boyakno, we don't have to be choishish that what happened, that they wrote the document in Tishrei, in Nisan, and they only gave the money in Tishrei. That can't happen, because Bezdin would never write such a document if they don't see the transaction of the money, because Bezdin don't write such a document if they don't see it, the money giving over. Omale Ravasi, afal gav de shtar de lava kno, ki leke malva ba'de lo yikasvinen, mesnissen keva de nofal, atrele v'chashinon dilme ikra v'kosim. Says Ravasi, in our Mishnah is talking about shtar de lava kno, and therefore we choish Hashem HaKosav lilvoitz b'nison v'lo lova tishrei. Or we don't write such a shtar without seeing the transaction of the money. Because in our Mishnah, that the stoma where he lost the shtar, there's a chashash that maybe it happened and they did write for him such a shtar, even that they never saw the money going over, and therefore he'll be goiver from his guarantee shaloi kedin. Abaye omar edo b'chasurim zocheloi v'afilu b'shtar de lo vakno. So the Gemara, Abaye says that in every case where you write a shtar, even if it's not the special shtar vakno, straight away from now, once the Eidim sign it and they have a document, that's it. The loivia has to pay, even if the money is transferred later or no money is transferred. Every shtar is a shtar akno. Now the Gemara explains. Mishum de kashe leikeben dormant b'shtar de lava akno kileise lemalva ba'ade lo yikasvina leicha lemichesh de ikr v'kosav. Says Abaye, the reason why he says this is because he holds it's impossible that it happened. Ravasi explained how the Chaych in the Mishnah, why we choishish happened, even though they normally won't write such a document until you see the transaction of the money. Says Abaye, can't be, we're not choishish if you don't write such a shtar until you see the transaction of the money. So we're not choishish that happens. So says Abaye, the Mishnah is every shtar straight away when the Eidim write on it, sign on it, that's it, the loiv is chayav to pay. And we're going to see in a second what's pshat in the Mishnah. Elahodetnan motzagiti noshim v'shichur avodim daiti kamatona v'shovrim Aryeh ze lo yachzir shem ksuvim oyevinim lech shalalitnon v'chinim nechalei mai have v'omar telu b'chasun zocheloi. Says the Gemara, it says a Mishnah that if someone found a get or a shichur of eved or a matona of a shchivimra and receipts, you shouldn't give it back, because maybe the guy wrote it and he never gave it. He changed his mind, that's about the present. But if you say once the Eidim sign in a shtar, it's as if it happened, so why we have to be choishish even if he never gave it? That's the Eidim signed as if the transaction happened, so there's nothing to be choishish for. Says the Gemara, Ani mi le'echet kimoti liyodei, aval echet de lo imoti liyodei lo yamrina. When do we say that when the Eidim sign in the shtar, the chiyuv schal from now? That's only if afterwards he gave him the shtar, he gave him the matona, he gave him the loan. But if he just wrote it and nothing happened, and the matona, he changed his mind on the matona, then nothing happened. All Rabbi is mechadesh. So if it happened at the end, when do we relate it? We relate it from the day the Eidim were written in the shtar. And therefore it's all kasha from over there that we are choishish, that it never happened. Says the Gemara, "Lemasisin iktoni motze shtor ichoi v'yesh b'yom achai sechoson le'achziv v'yikinu k'shechayv moedu mishum shem hakosav lilvois b'nisan v'lo ilova atishrei. V'shor asi doma b'shtor haknaise muklu b'shtor de la haknaise ukdar minan ela la'abaye doma ede b'chasun zocheloi ma'ike le'meima." So the Gemara goes back to Abaye. So Abaye holds, if there's Eidim who signed in the document, even if the loan happened later. We go back as if the loan happened when the Eidim signed in the document. So what's pshat in the Mishnah? Bishleim Ravasi, there's a difference between shtar akno and lav shtar akno, like we said, and therefore Ravasi says the Mishnah is talking about the shtar lav akno, and we're choishes shem kosav lilvos b'nisam v'lo lovat tishrei. But Labai, the every shtar starts from when it's written in the shtar, even if the loan happened much later on. There's nothing to be choishes for, and therefore, why did it say in the Mishnah if there's a guarantee, you don't give it back to the Malva? If the Loive admits that the loan happened, why is it to be choishes? There's a new chashash over here. We are choishes, maybe the loan happened, but really Reuven paid off the loan already. So why is Reuven saying they never paid off? Because they have a plan, him and Shimon, the Malva, have a plan. They say, listen, I'm going to say I never paid off. I have no money. So therefore you could take away from the people who bought off me a field in that time. And you're going to take away the field from them, and then we'll split 50-50. So that's why in the Mishnah, if there is a chayes nechosim, there's guarantee, we don't give it back, even though that the borrower admits, because we're thinking maybe they're doing a knunya, maybe they're doing a trick, and they're trying to get out these fields from the people who bought off the loive and to split 50-50. Says the Gemara, Shmuel, who we're going to see later on, who holds that he doesn't hold of this chashash, so we choishes lepuron that he paid back already, and he's doing this trick, and they're doing a sly thing to get back these fields off the people who the loive sold the fields to. What's pshat in the Mishnah? If you're going to say that like Ravasi, so you could say Shmuel holds like Ravasi, and he holds there's a difference between a normal shtar and shtar akno, and therefore the Mishnah is talking about a shtar that's not akno, and therefore the chashash is maybe shamakos of lilvos b'nisam v'lo lovat tishrei. Ele yisovak Abaye doma edim chasum zocholoi mai kelemema. What's pshat in the Mishnah if he holds like Abaye, because there's never this chashash that the document was written on one date and the transaction happened on another date, because the chiyuv starts from when it's written in the shtar. So the Gemara Shmuel Mukin Masisim Kishaim Chayiv Moida. The Mishnah is talking about where the borrower Reuven does not admit that he owes the money he paid back, or maybe he never borrowed the money at the end. So the Gemara Yochi, if so, Kain Boy Machrais and Chosim Amayach Zinei Deloy Govi Mimshabdi Mimnei Choyer Migbek Govi. If so, why when there's no guarantee in the shtar, why do you give it back to the Malva? Why do you give it back to Shimon? Reuven saying, I paid back. Very good, you can't take from the property you sold, but we will take the money from him, and he doesn't admit that he still owes. So the Gemara, Shmuel etamei, Da'amar Shmuel, Oimer Oyer Amer, Shtar Choyiv Shein Bar Chayis Nechosim, En Goy V'loi Mishabdi V'loi Bnei Chori. So the Gemara, Shmuel holds in Shittas Rameir that in a shtar that there's no guarantee on, it's not worth anything. You can't even take away from the borrower the money, because it's not worth such a shtar that doesn't have a guarantee. It's not a good shtar, and therefore has no value. Says the Gemara, why should he give it back to Shimon if he can't use it? What are you giving it back for? Yeah, you're only giving it back to the Malva, to Shimon, as the value of the paper, to use it as a bottle stopper. He'll take this document, roll it, and when he has the open wine, he can block the bottle, but not because he could claim from Reuven. So the Gemara, if that's the whole value as a paper, why didn't he give it back to Reuven, the loive? Why did he give it back to Shimon? What's pshat? He says he paid back, it should go to Reuven. Or he says the loan never happened. So the Gemara, the loive says, this never happened. This document is a false document. So therefore, obviously, you won't give it back to the loive. He says, I don't know what this document is, but the Malvo says it's a real document. So even though that you can't use it as a shtar to take the loan, but you can use it as a bottle stopper. So it comes out in the Mishnah that we have three pshatim in the Mishnah, that when there, in Reb Meir, it says when there is a guarantee, you don't give it back, and when there's no guarantee, you give it back. So the fear of Asi and Abaye, it's talking about where Reuven, the borrower, admits he still owes the money. And the difference is that if you could take it from Mishubodim, if you could take the property sold, we're choishesh, lefir of Asi, we're choishesh, maybe the loan happened on a later date from when it says in the star. And Abaye says, that's not chashash, because if the Edim signed on that date, so the chiyuv schar from that date. So if you Abaye, the chashash is Piron Beknunya, that they're doing a trick to get the fields that Reuven sold. And if Shmuel, it's talking about where the loiver does not admit that this loan happened, and you give it back to the now, but you use it as a bottle stopper. Okay, very good. Further Gemara weiter on the base. Omar Rabbi Loza, machloikis v'she'ein chayiv moida. The machloikis in the Mishnah is talking about where the loiver Reuven does not admit to the loan. There are many sov ashtar she'ein bo achrais nechosim einu goy v'loy mi mishabde v'loy b'nei. You can't use it for anything, like we said. You give it back to Shimon. But if it has a achrayas nechosim, you won't give it back, because then it's a good star, and the loiver does not admit, so you don't give it back. Rabbanan savri migva govi, that even if there's no achrayas nechosim, you're goiva also if there's no guarantee, you still could take from the field that he sold. And we're going to see later on why that, and therefore you can't give it back, because the loiver does not admit. If the loiver admits he owes the money, you should give it back. If he admits he still owes the money to Shimon, for sure you should give it back to Shimon. Lefi everyone, and there's nothing to be choishesh that they're doing a trick, that Shimon wants to come to Reuven and say, give me my money back, and really Reuven paid back, but they're doing a trick and saying he didn't pay back, and then Reuven is going to say, I don't have no money, and they're going to take the field that Reuven sold, and they're going to split it between them. So that's Shittas Rabbi Loza. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chlokes Kishachav Moida Pshat in the Mishnah is talking about where Loiva is Moida, that he still owes the money to Shimon. There are many Sova Shtashin Boy Achrais Nechosim Mishabdu Loidu Govi. If there's no guarantee, you don't take from the fields that he sold. Abba Bnei Chori from Reuven himself Mikva Govi, and he admits that he still owes the money, so you give it back to Shimon. Rabbanon Savri, they hold Mimshab Dinami Gabi, even if there's no guarantee in the document, it's as if there is a guarantee in the document, and therefore, even though the Reuven's Moida, we're choishesh that he'll be taking from the Mishubodim. Avokashein Chayv Moida, but if the loiver Reuven says, I don't owe the money, Divra Koilach Loyachzi, you should not give it back to Shimon, because if Reuven's tainuring they never paid back, if he doesn't owe anymore, we're choishesh, you really paid off already, and therefore you can't give back the star to Shimon. So the Gemara, Tani Kavosei de Rabbi Yochanan, V'tiyuvta de Rabbi Loza b'choda. We have a brisa that's a raya to Rabbi Yochanan, and it's a kasha on Rabbi Loza on one thing he said. V'tiyuvta de Shmuel, and it's a kasha on what Shmuel said, B'tarti on two things that he said. Because it says, Motza shtori choiv, someone found a loan document, v'yesh b'im achrayis nechosim, and there's a guarantee inside, afal pi sheshnei moedim, even if they both admit that the loan is still there and he still owes the money, lo yachzi lo lezeh v'lo lezeh. He should not give back, not to Reuven and not to Shimon. Ein b'im achrayis nechosim, if there's no guarantee, bizman shaloi v'moida, if the Reuven admits he still owes the money, yachzi lemalve, he should give it back to Shimon. If Reuven says he paid back already, should not give it back to anyone. That's just Rameh. Because Rameh used to say, that there is a guarantee inside. You could take it from the land that he sold. If it doesn't have a guarantee in the document, you could only take from the loiva, and therefore it makes sense. The Chachamim said, it doesn't matter if there is a guarantee inside or there's no guarantee in the document. You are goiva minichosim that he sold if the loiva doesn't have money, and therefore you should never give it back. Said the Gemara, to the Rabbi Loza b'choda. Why is that the Omer? The Omer, because Rabbi Loza said, Rabbi Meir, shtar she'ein b'achrayis nechosim eini goyvim nechosim mishubodim v'lo nechosim b'chor. Because Rabbi Loza says that lefi Rabbi Meir, if there's no guarantee, the shtar has no value. So that, and here it says that lefi Rabbi Meir, you are goyvim nechosim nechorim from the loiva itself. And also he said, that there's no chashash of knunya, that they're doing a trick and they're trying to take these properties that the loiva sold. In the Braisa it says, Shtar shein bo achrais nechosim. Mi meshabdi ude loy govi, hob mei chorimig bagovi. Sorry. And Rabbi Loza said that doesn't matter if you're a mea, doesn't matter if you're a bonon, you know choishish v'knunya. And in the Braisa it says that Shtar shein bo achrais nechosim, you do take from Bnei Chorim, so that's one kasha. And also, that there is a chashash that they may be doing a trick. And Rabbi Loza says there's no such a chashash that the Loiva and Malva are doing a trick and they're trying to take away from the fields the Loiva sold. It says in the Braisa, even if they both admit that the Choiv is still existing, you should not give it back, not to the Malva, not to the Loiva. Why not? Alma, we could see Chashin. You could see we are choishish that they're doing a trick. So it's a kasha in Rabbi Loza. And the Gemara said two kashas. And that the Gemara says, "Hanitartihu." These are two kashas. Why did you say that from the Braisa is only kasha in Rabbi Loza on one thing? There's two things that's a kasha in Rabbi Loza. So the Gemara chodahu, it's one. The chad tamhu, because it all comes from the same reason. The mishum de kama Rabbi Loza machloikes b'shein chayv moida, who since Rabbi Loza wants to explain the mission that's talking about where the Loiva Reuven does not admit that he owns the money, he has to explain the whole mission that we're not choishish for knunya, and if you're a mayor, you can't be goyvev b'nei chosim, b'nei chorim if there's no guarantee. So because of one reason, the mayor wanted to say that's the mission. Sorry, Rabbi Loza explained the mission of b'shein chayv moida. He had to say two things, and both of those things were shlogged up, were asked from the Braisa. So really, it's two kashas. But the source of the two kashas are all because of one reason, that he wants to explain the Mishnah b'she'ein chayev moida. So therefore, we call it one. Says the Gemara, Tiyufta de Shmuel b'tarti. There's two kashas on Shmuel from this Braisa choda. One is Rabbi Loza domuki masishin b'she'ein chayev moida, because Shmuel explained that the Mishnah is talking about b'she'ein chayev moida, and he learns like Rabbi Loza that if you're a mayor, you give it back for a bottle stopper, and when there's no Christ nechosim, because you can't claim from anyone. And like we saw in the Braisa, it doesn't say like that. It says clearly that if you're a mayor, she'ein shtar without guarantee, you could take from the loiva. Not, it's not valuable. Or Shmuel said it's not valuable. Here it says it is valuable. V'choda, and another kash on Shmuel, the Omer Shmuel, mota shtar akno b'shuk. If someone found a shtar that's akno, like we learned early on, that has even if the loan doesn't happen from now, you give it back to the bailim, and you know choishish, maybe the loiva paid off already. And tiyufta, and it's a kasha from over here. The Ktoni Yocha in this price it says afal pishish nei moedim, even though that they both admit that the loan happened, you should not give it back. Alma chayshin lepiron, you are choishish, maybe he paid back. Even more in the Braisa, that Shmuel said that if he found a shtar and it's still malachar over there, even that the loiva says I paid back. For sure there you should be choishish for piron, and Shmuel says you're not choishish for piron. Even more you should be choishish when the loiva says, if already in the Braisa we see that even when they both admit that the loan happens, we're choishish lipiron. So kol sheken, when the loiva says I don't owe the money, we choishish that actually what he's saying is true, and therefore you should be choishish. He paid off. It's not like what Shmuel said. Thank you very much. Everyone should have a blessed day.